Okay, so I'd like to welcome Jen Blatz to the podcast. Super happy to have you on. So you're the principal UX researcher at BECU, but maybe more widely known, the co-founder of the UX Research and Strategy Group, and that's how I kind of found out about you. So yeah, super happy to have you on.
Thanks, Dale. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, me too. So, kind of just to kind of get us started, would you like to give like just a brief introduction, or not even brief, you can take as much time as you like, just an introduction into who you are, maybe how you found out about UX, how you entered the field, and all the way up to where you are now.
Sure. So I started out in journalism, actually. I
Mm,
was a journalism graphics major in college. And what that meant
wow, cool.
was, back in the day, was designing publications. So I
Oh,
started out, my first job was a designer for a daily newspaper. And so what
ah,
was really good about that first job was it gave me the discipline of deadlines. I
mm,
had to design normally the local section of the newspaper,
hmm.
and I had until 11 p.m. to get that done. There
Oh,
was
wow.
no putting it off until tomorrow. I'll do it later. There would be a big blank space in the paper if that were the
Yikes.
case. So it helped me
Yeah.
to learn about deadlines, but also
Mm,
adaptability, because there could be times my main story or my main image could have been taken away from my front page
wow.
at the last minute, and I had about 30 minutes to redesign the whole front page and therefore some of
Goodness
the
me.
inside pages. So it really taught me how to be a fast designer.
Mm,
And
wow.
so with that graphic design background, I kind of became stayed in publications for a while and worked in
Hmm.
marketing at a law firm, designing their print publications
Okay.
and marketing materials and whatnot. And design was heading toward web design
Mm.
and away from print. And I was seeing the forest for the trees, I guess, in a sense. And I am not a great coder. So I was trying to
Okay.
learn HTML and CSS, and it was a bit of a disaster, I would say,
Yeah.
just not my thing.
I've done it, but
And you know what I'm saying?
yeah, it's not for me as well.
Yeah. So I went to a meetup. I lived in Los Angeles at the time, and I went to a meetup. It was about design. And that's
Hmm.
when I learned about user experience. And I was like, oh, wow. First of all, they use all the tools that I use. Back then, it was Adobe tools.
Mm.
So Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, even.
Okay.
And they don't have to code everything. I'm like, all right, now you are singing my
This
song
is for
here.
me.
Okay, this is for me. So I really started to get involved in that local UX
Mm.
community, networking
Oh.
people, meeting people, learning about the processes and tools. What do you do? What
Mm.
is this job like? Learning about the different facets, visual design and information
Hmm.
architecture and research. And my first job was, I would say, basically either a UI job or visual designer, which seamlessly transitioned my skills as a graphic designer
Hmm.
into visual design.
Oh.
And as I went to like my next job was kind of the UX team of one. In a lot of my
Mm.
jobs, that's been the case. And I just found that I got more interested in learning about the problem than
Mm.
designing the solution for the problem. So a
Yeah.
lot of those UX team of one roles, I was the designer and the researcher. I had to learn research totally by reading books and articles
Wow.
and figuring it out like
Yeah.
overnight, totally self-taught.
Mm.
And I was like learning about the different research methods, the different ways I could approach answering my questions to help inform
Mm.
my designs. And as
Hmm.
time went on, I was just more fascinated with learning about things rather
Mm.
than designing the solution.
Yeah.
So as I went to larger companies, I came to a bit of a crossroads where they said, we have design positions and we have a researcher position. What do you want to do? I
Mm.
was like,
That's
ooh,
nice.
good question. I think I want to be a researcher. And so my path
Yeah.
has kind of gone a little
Ah.
bit more down the researcher way.
That's cool. That's cool. And obviously, not to give you an age or anything, but how long ago was this? Just kind of for perspective, kind of this crossroads of, okay, I want to do research.
Yeah, I think it was like 1865. No.
1860. Wow. So you're around 200 now.
Yeah, yeah. No, let's see. I can't, I am happy to give a perspective. When I first got into UX was probably around, when I first learned about it was probably around 2012,
Okay.
2011. Maybe
Okay.
2013 was kind of when I took on my first like side gig to kind of
Okay.
learn about it, and
Yeah.
started doing volunteer projects because I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't having the opportunity to do UX in my current role. So
Right.
I took on side projects and volunteered for organizations
Mm.
like Catch a Fire and Taproot to get the
Okay.
experience that I wanted to gain to
Yeah.
be more UX ready.
Yeah.
So uh, it was about 2014, 2015 when I got my first full-time
Mm-hmm.
UX role, and I would say it was maybe 2019 when I've had some roles that my title was UX designer, but I
Mm-hmm.
was really doing more UX research. But I
Okay.
would say probably around 2019 was
Okay.
the last time. I'm totally butchering my timeline. I should know these things.
Don't worry.
2019 was probably the last time I had a sorry, not junior, a UX designer title.
Okay.
So I've been a
Okay. No,
researcher
that's
since
cool.
probably about 2019, 2020,
No,
I'd
that's
say,
cool. No, it's
as my
just
title.
okay. That's cool. Yeah, just for a bit of perspective, because obviously the UX landscape changes a lot. So just for the listeners to understand, okay, because obviously UX 20 years ago, for example, probably looks a lot different to the experience that people are having now entering the field. So no, that's interesting. And in
Yeah,
terms of like,
I would
go
say
go.
that one little thing that kind of helped me figure out where I wanted to go, because UX is broad and there's a lot
Yeah.
of sub disciplines within. And one of the, should we say, deal breakers, or one of the things that pushed me over the edge maybe, was I was working at a large company and we were designing the design system, creating the design
Okay.
system, fleshing that out. And all designers, hands on deck, everybody had to
Mm,
contribute. And I was responsible for anything that was over the top. So
okay.
side drawers, modals, toasts,
Okay.
popovers, and I had to design every state for every one of those.
Oh wow.
Open, hover,
Hmm.
visited, error, all to pixel perfection. And I was just
Sounds
like,
exciting.
I, yeah, I am done. I do not love design enough to have pixel perfection every
Yeah.
time. I just killed my passion for it, really,
Yeah.
that one approach.
But it's interesting you talk about that because maybe like you don't really think about that side of design of UX design. You think about all the cool UI and obviously once you've made the app and it's also cool. So that kind of side of things, obviously designing design systems like can be yeah, what's the word? I'm missing the word, but it can be mechanical, can be a bit of a slog. So yeah, no, it's nice also you give that kind of side of it. And it's not for everybody as well. Just because you're in UX doesn't mean you have to love design. Obviously design is a part of it, but there are other facets of UX which may appeal more to you. And obviously I think the same for both of us. Research was the side that appealed to me the most as well. Kind of learning about people, understanding why they do things, and if there's a pain point, how can we kind of smooth that over and stuff. That's something that appealed to me. So yeah, totally
Absolutely.
get where you're coming from. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's
I
cool.
think also one of my first jobs that I really loved research, fell in love with research, and it was a really cool job. I
Mm.
was the UX designer at a veterinary company, so animal
Oh,
hospitals. So I
nice.
went into, I didn't even, I mean, at that point, the most I'd ever owned as a pet was a goldfish. Like I wasn't a pet person, and I went into animal hospitals and shadowed
Mm.
doctors. And
That's awesome.
it was really awesome research considering I'd never
Mm.
been behind the scenes at a veterinary company
Yeah.
and what that looks like, and
Yeah.
what's their they have operating rooms and little mini everything for cats and dogs, and that was so fascinating to me to
Yeah.
learn about behind the scenes and to really see that was
Yeah.
where my excitement for research probably really got high.
That's cool. So it's not even necessarily the discipline of UX research, but more discovering a new field, a new area that, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's also something that I've enjoyed as well. So my previous role was at Skyfi, and that was all in satellite imagery and Earth observation. I absolutely knew nothing about that field before becoming a UX researcher at Skyfi. So obviously, to be an efficient UX researcher for that company, you do need to know the field and your users. So that was something. It was a challenge, but it's something that I loved. I learned tons of stuff that I never knew before. So it gave me a new perspective on even just Google Images and Google Maps. Like it gave me a new perspective on how that all works and stuff as well. So yeah, that's awesome. In terms of like the discipline itself, like UX research for you, what was it that appealed to you the most? So you mentioned just before that creating this design system was super boring. What was it about research that just, yeah, like lit that fire inside of you?
Yeah, I think it started at that veterinary company and really
Okay.
observing doctors, shadow doctors, going into
Mm,
the environments. So the company where I worked, we designed the internal health record, the medical
okay.
record software. So anything from booking appointments to hosting all the medical records and whatnot,
Hmm.
anything for the run of house of the hospitals. And just going in there and seeing the run of show and how it really
Mm.
works and having those aha moments like, oh man, I was going to design it this way and that would have been totally wrong because this is really how they use it. To
Yeah.
me, that was like that. I am not that like ego driven designer that
Mm.
thinks, oh no, I'm right. Don't prove me wrong. No, I love to be
Yeah.
proven wrong. It happens almost every minute, just in general.
Don't worry, I will do it.
And it's okay, Dale, if you do.
Yeah. No, you've
And
got 30 minutes of grace, don't worry.
so just to have those aha moments, that's what really
Mm.
excites me about
Yeah.
research. Or even something comes up that you never expected to observe or to see, and you're like, whoa, I never saw that coming. We weren't even going to go there. That wasn't even on my agenda today. And you touched upon something that was really awesome. And I need to go back and
Mm.
tell my product owner that this is a thing because I don't know that
Yeah.
you know this is a thing. So that is what really got me excited about research is
Mm.
discovering either through observation or interviews or whatever that might be, discovering something I was like, oh wow, that's pretty amazing. Let's
Yeah,
make
that's
a note of
cool.
that.
And I think that's like the whole job of being a UX researcher as well. Like you're going out there to prove yourself wrong almost because we all go into, even if you try your best to eliminate bias in your head, you always go into it thinking, yeah, I know my product, I know my users and all that. But then every single time you speak to a user, almost every single time, they will say something, or if you moderate, you're obviously watching a usability test or whatever it might be, and they do something super weird or from your point of view super weird. It's like I didn't realize they'd use a filter that way or something. It happened a few times to me that we set up filters and from my point of view they were like super self-explanatory, and then during an interview one of the users would say, well, I actually use a filter this way to reveal these results, and it's like complete opposite way that I would imagine someone would use it. So I was like super excited to then go and tell the product lead and all the designers, and they were like, "Oh, that never thought of it that way." And obviously you can move forward then thinking, okay, so there are some users that use it that way, etc. So I find also that kind of side of things that super appealed to me at the beginning. So yeah, I can vibe with you totally on that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. In terms of like, so obviously you mentioned before you kind of are a self-learner, so you self-taught UX. What were the challenges of taking that avenue? I took the same avenue myself, self-taught UX researcher. For you, what were the challenges? And also the flip side, what for you were the advantages of doing it that way as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion. Back in the day, there weren't a lot of boot camps as an
Mm,
option. I don't even think there were grad school options, maybe a little bit, but I wasn't really going to
okay.
invest the time into something like that. I did get a
Hmm.
certification from a university that was like a 6-week course.
Sure.
But honestly, to this day, I don't know that made me was the tipping point for an employer to look at me, right?
Okay.
I don't know that any employers have been like, ah, she has a certification from that university, so therefore we will hire her. So
Mm,
I really honestly don't know. the validity of that certification, other than it was in person, and other
Mm.
than the relationships that I built.
Sure.
And I'm still in contact with my some of my teachers and
Oh.
students and people that I met, and that was like in
Mm.
2014, 2015,
Okay.
maybe. I think
Okay.
2015. So I'm still in contact with people.
That's
Uh,
nice.
and I guess the challenges of learning being self-taught is there's so many
Mm.
good books, and a book is anywhere from
Yeah.
200 to 600 pages, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I need to learn how to do this for tomorrow because I've got to figure this out. Like I said
Yeah.
I was going to do this usability test, and I don't know what I'm doing. So really hunkering down
Yeah.
and learning, but I think giving yourself some grace and building out a network. I have a lot of peer
Mm.
mentors, I'm no spring chicken, and I think that I have mentors still that I can go to ask
Yeah.
questions and to get help, and like, how do you do this? You know?
Mm.
And it's funny because people are like, "Wait, why are you asking me? You're the one who knows things." I'm like, no, 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 no. I want to learn from others." So just
Yeah.
having that growth mindset and understanding like, hey, being open to there's other ways to do
Yeah.
things than maybe who somebody told you how they did it, or
Yeah.
the way you read it, and being open to like trying something new and giving yourself the
Yeah.
grace to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. I was actually speaking to someone today, and he mentioned that humility is one of the main qualities that he asks of his team, and he's a super important person, also of himself as well. I forgot to mention that. And he's a speaker, he's well known in the UX community. And he said, like, humility is one of the biggest qualities, even though all of my team have certifications from Nielsen Norman Group, they're all masters of UX, etc. But if you don't have that quality, you'll struggle. You'll struggle to move forward, to be successful and be efficient as a researcher or a designer or whatever you're doing. Because the beauty of UX and UX research, from my point of view, is that we all have different minds, we all have different ways to look at things, and that's what helps a team function and move the product to be whatever product it is, if it's digital or physical, whatever, to be the best it can be for the users. So at the end of the day, that's our focus, to make sure the product is functional and user
Yep.
friendly for our users, not our
Yeah.
ego and how big it is and how much we know, but how much we're learning about our users. So yeah, that's something that resonates with me a lot. So thank
Yeah,
you for
totally
sharing
agree.
that.
Yeah.
And in
No,
terms
I
of
mean, yeah, totally mess up all the time.
yeah,
And I just, okay, this is how we're gonna roll.
no, that's good. And I think as well for your team as well, I think when they see their lead or principal or having that attitude as well, that helps them relax. Oh, I can make mistakes and maybe I'll get something wrong or I won't conduct that usability test to the best that I can do. But that's all the whole part of the process and learning. And yeah, whether you're senior, junior, whatever, like it's good to have that attitude that you can make mistakes, but obviously you're there to learn from your teammates and vice versa. So if there's this kind of like atmosphere of, I don't know, if you make a mistake and then everyone jumps on your work and criticizes it, then yeah, you'll quickly have a toxic atmosphere. So yeah,
Yeah,
super vibe with that.
absolutely. I was talking to a more junior designer on my team,
Mm.
and I mentioned imposter syndrome. And she was like, "Wait, what? How could you ever have imposter syndrome?" And I'm like, "Girl, I am the queen of imposter syndrome. What are you talking about?" And she's like, "You have years of experience and you speak and la 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 la." And I'm like, "Doesn't matter. I
That never
question
leaves you.
my validity every single day and hope someday, knock on wood, that it will end, but working on it."
No, no.
But no, honestly, it's that humility that you were talking about,
Yeah,
Dale. It's true. I I I pity the person that feels like they've reached the top and they know
yeah,
everything and that they're the best, because then why go
yeah.
on?
Exactly, exactly. It's not about that. It's about being the best you can be, but being also the best teammate you can be and someone that you can learn from and vice versa. I think for me, if I feel I've reached that pinnacle of my life, that someone can view me as like, okay, yeah, he's humble enough to make mistakes and own up to it and I can learn from him, then for me, I'm good. Whatever my title is, I'll stay junior for the rest of my life. But if I reach that, then I'll be happy. So
Absolutely.
you mentioned before as well that you did some volunteer work, and I'm like a big advocate of volunteering. That's what helped me transition career and get the real experience that I needed to be able to even go through an interview process and kind of know what I'm talking about or blag my way through the interview. Because a lot of the time I've noticed from people I've spoken to that are trying to look for a job or transitioning over, it's always the case of how do I get that experience if no one gives me a job? So they end up obviously putting together a fake case study, or they invent a user issue or user problem, which is okay. But you're not also working in a team. You're not developing or learning the team dynamics of presenting results or handovers or that sort of thing. And volunteering in a team, that's something that helped me open my eyes to that side of things. So for you, kind of what was it from volunteering that appealed to you at the beginning? Was it someone that introduced it to you, or did you just
Yeah.
decide yourself, yeah, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I will say it was for selfish reasons. Like you mentioned, Dale,
Go
it
ahead.
was to get experience
Yeah.
in areas that I was not able to get experience where I was currently employed.
Yeah.
And to do so in a place where they need the help, and they're a volunteer or not for profit, or I supported their cause,
Hmm.
and it wasn't like a large corporation that was
Yeah,
like
no.
really profitable. So I mentioned a couple organizations, Taproot. Not sure, that was years ago. I'm not. I think they're still around, but they were only in certain cities at the time.
Okay.
And then Catch a Fire
Yeah,
was
those are
a
famous one.
project that you could kind of, here's my skills, little things, right? Like
Hmm.
I just did some research and did some interviews and understanding what their market was like and what their users were like, rather than to build the whole website out, right? I
Mm.
didn't do the
Yeah.
design. I was trying to understand, getting practice in a competitive analysis and interviews and creating a journey map, because those were not skills I was able to do in my current role.
Right.
So I was like, I think that's the beauty of volunteering. It's like, look, I'm free. I've got certain things I need to do from this, and
Yeah.
and we're going to work together. I'm going to
Yeah.
deliver results that you're looking for, but I'm also looking for things too. Make it a
Yeah.
mutual relationship. And
Exactly.
I do think that instead of making something up or redesigning Google or whatever that might be, working with, there's so many nonprofits, dog rescue organizations that are
Yeah.
so bad that they don't even have a website. All they've got is Facebook, or there's so many
Yeah.
things that you could make an impact on and track those metrics, and
Yeah.
really get behind the scenes and work with that
Mm.
organization by setting goals that they don't even know that they need, and really
Exactly. Yeah.
using that as a business case, and working not just the visual design, but really working through multiple facets of UX, and showing success metrics with that group.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of volunteering your time with a real business. Like
Mm.
it might be a church, or even like a small, a local business, flower shop, whatever it might be. You can
Yeah.
really like get to what you need out of it as well.
Exactly. Exactly. And it also gives the potential employer something real that they can go and look at as well, like on the App Store or wherever it is. Whereas if it's something fake, yeah, it can display one side of your skill set, whether it be UI or whatever. But if it's an invented problem or issue, obviously they don't know what that's based on, where you're coming from, all of this. If you obviously, like I said, for some people it's worked and that's good, but for me, and I think also for yourself, like having that real life experience working in a real team, seeing the results, like you say, setting up metrics that you can measure, real metrics with real users, that's something that I really benefited from. And also for me, working in a team, so I had at the beginning, obviously, there was a lead UX researcher who had experience at Google, so he was kind of also a mentor. And then also the handoff to engineers, various stakeholders. So the largest volunteer group I worked for was Orca Sound. So they monitor orca whales in the Seattle Bay Area. So super cool thing as well. So there's like loads of marine biologists involved. So they were kind of obviously the stakeholders. And then obviously our task was to investigate who our users were, pain points. And obviously because their website was not the best, putting it lightly. So obviously the aim was to improve the whole experience for, because at the beginning it set up just as a site just for those scientists. Then they realized that there was a bit of interest from maybe students or university biologists who were studying at university, sorry. And they were using these hydrophones to listen to the whales for their case studies and research and stuff. So slowly they realized that there were some user groups and maybe they needed to improve the experience. So it was a real functioning product, which was really cool to work on. And it gave me the most experience that I could have asked for at the time. So yeah, and like you said, there are a few others like Catch a Fire, and the one I found Okasan through Democracy Lab, which I think is also a pretty well known one. So yeah, and even now I'm volunteering in my off season from work, from looking for a job. So that's something that's now allowing me also. So whatever point you are at your career as well, you can still always go back to volunteering, kind of keep your skills up and keep yourself in the game. So yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
One thing I also wanted to touch on as well is just maybe some advice that you received throughout your career. Could have been from your mum, could have been from a senior UX researcher somewhere. What was that one piece of advice or that statement or phrase or whatever it was that really stuck with you and helped you overcome an obstacle or just stuck with you throughout your career?
Yeah. I think some advice for anyone would be real, be genuine,
Mm,
be
yeah.
yourself. I don't take myself too seriously. I'm pretty goofy. I curse like a sailor, trying to keep the curse words on the down low for the family friendly podcast today.
There
No,
we go.
but
I was about to say, no, I'm joking.
uh be yourself. Don't
Yeah,
try to be I'm not saying don't be professional. If
sure,
you're,
sure.
if you struggle with that, I'm sorry, I get you. But be yourself. And
Yeah.
if you find that a job doesn't align with your values, or if
Mm,
people don't treat you right,
yeah.
or just something feels wrong that goes against your morals or whatever that might be, listen to that instinct and know
Mm,
that it's okay to walk away from that, because everything
yeah.
happens for a reason. And those
Hmm.
red flags are rearing their ugly head for some reason. You may never know, but like trust your gut. And
Yeah.
by being genuine and showing like, hey, I'm kind of silly, I'm pretty animated, and if that person
Mm,
doesn't like you for that reason, then that is not
then
where
yeah.
you're meant to be, and that's not who you're meant to be with. So,
Yeah.
no, like you will surround yourself with people who get you and get the
Yeah.
quirks of your personality. And so, be genuine
Mm,
would be what
yeah.
my advice would be.
That's some nice advice. Yeah, I think it's important because, like you say, it's hard when you're, let's say, for inverted commas, desperate for a job, especially if you're trying to transition over. Maybe there's some listeners who are at that stage; they're still waiting for their first job. It can be hard when you're in an interview process and you feel you're going to get the job, but there are those red flags, and you're thinking, but even if I just go 6 months, gets me that experience on my CV. But it's better just not to have a job than be in a toxic environment or people that just don't like your personality. Just you don't get on with them. You just hate your job, and it can even tarnish like your love of UX or if it's research or
Absolutely.
design. And then you can pack it all in at the end of it, and then it's a lot of wasted effort and potentially a good UX researcher leaves the community. So yeah, I completely agree. I've been in those positions before where it's been you're kind of disappointed that they've not offered you the job. But then those red flags during the process, it was probably better that they didn't offer you the job. So yeah, no, completely agree. And thanks for sharing that as well and being so honest.
Sure.
Cool, thank you. If you like,
Thank you.
we can end the we can end the
All
podcast here.
right.
It's been
Thank you
a
so
pleasure.
much.
It's been a pleasure to have you on to speak to you. Thanks for being so you and so so easy to talk to. And yeah, maybe we'll get you back on in the future if you're up for it. um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
cool.
Thank
And
you for
maybe we can.
asking me. I'm honored. I'm really honored. You've
No
had some
problem.
really I was looking refreshing my memory this morning, and you've had some really fantastic guests. Like Nikki's
Thank
great,
you.
and you
Yes.
had Julian, and I'm actually scheduling some time with Julian here in next
Della
week.
Mattia.
So, yeah.
He's cool. He's cool. Yeah, he's actually one of the first people that helped me, like when I was transitioning career. So he's always been like that guy, that's that sidekick guy that's been there for me. He's actually just messaged me now on LinkedIn. But yeah, no, he's a cool guy. Yeah, I'm super privileged to have had all of these people on this podcast. Like I've
Yeah,
learned a lot just being sat here as well. Even though I'm hosting the podcast, I'm learning a lot. So it's a big
absolutely.
privilege for me, and you're one of those. So thank
Well,
you. I
thank you.
really
No,
appreciate it.
thank you. I'm honored. I really am.
That's cool. I'm happy. Cool. Yeah. So thank you, and yeah, we'll
Yeah,
get you
just
back on
drop me
soon.
a note when it's live on the site.